Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we have yet another write-in topic from our amazing listeners.
They are pretty amazing, aren't they?
I mean, at least 7 of them that we have are pretty amazing. This one coming from our friend Adam, who picked this out, saying, you know what one of the greatest inventions of all time is? That apparently we missed on our list?
Yeah.
The shipping container.
Now that I've done the research, I can't believe neither you nor I brought that up with, like, inventions.
So when we did our Top 10 Inventions podcast episode, go check that one out, by the way.
Nice.
Number 1 drop right there, Top 10 Inventions.
Good plug.
I never would have thought of this, and after researching it, I still don't think it's even close to a top 10 invention of all time.
Oh, I don't think it's an all-time, but the fact that it wasn't even in our collective list.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a top 20. It's pretty cool. It's a lot cooler than I thought it would be.
How else do you get stuff all over the world? What, in a bag?
Well, I guess so. But anyways,
okay.
Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
About how they get stuff all over the world.
Yes.
Back in the day,
They
used to only send luxury items like silk
Okay.
around the world, or specialty items like coffee.
That you couldn't get where your local... Yep.
Right. So they were high-priced, more expensive things. Speaking of coffee, check out our coffee episode, how coffee is made. Everything from
shameless
picking the
plugs.
bean to roasting it and making the perfect cup, which was a good episode.
It was a good one.
Anyways, so only expensive luxury stuff used to be shipped around the world.
Okay.
That is until 1956, when the Ideal X, a converted World War II tanker, left Newark, New Jersey, loaded up with shipping containers. Shipping containers changed the game.
It was called the name of it was the Ideal X.
Yeah, maybe that's a 10.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was
Okay.
a converted World War II ship.
Okay.
Speaking of World War II, check out our World War II episode
Okay.
about crazy.
You have to stop now. You have to stop. 3 is I'm gonna punch you if you do one more.
Wow, violence is never the answer, Luke.
Usually.
I just do it to bother you now. Anyways, before we came up with shipping containers, cargo was brought by truck and loaded piece by piece onto a boat, which I think sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And this would take like a week to fill up the hull of the boat. Because, I mean, you can't let the stuff get wet when it's
Yeah,
traveling. It all has
yeah.
to be underneath the top deck. That sounds terrible. And just imagine all that stuff sitting there. There was all sorts of theft. People loading, people just hanging around the docks. They just stole stuff all the
Shady
time.
people hang out at docks, I think.
I think that's a mean thing to say.
Well, no, I don't mean like the people working there, but like if you're just hanging out near a dock.
Yeah. Well, they called this break bulk cargo.
Okay.
So basically you would take like, I don't know, a clock and set that next to a hammer, set that next to a bunch of food.
Oh, so it's totally
So
random.
it was like you're just randomly throwing crap in.
okay.
It's like
Okay.
the ultimate vacation trunk packing. Like
Okay.
all of the stuff going in there.
I got you. I'm with you.
And they say the loaders were paid $20 a day and all the booze you could carry. Since theft was so high, that was kind of what they said the pay was.
I got you.
So I thought that was interesting. Do you have anything about early
Do you know the
shipping?
guy's name that invented it? Did you catch his name by chance?
Malcolm McLean?
Yeah.
I did catch that.
But how come you didn't bring it up? You didn't
I was
wanna-
about to say that right now. He was
give
the
him any
first to do
credit?
this. He was a good dude. He bought a ship, he bought some trucks, and he designed the big corrugated metal box that we know and love.
Was it corrugated back then?
I don't know. I feel like it was. Do you know?
No.
Well, then why would you ask
I
that?
was trying to make you look bad.
Wow. I believe it was. Everything I saw kind of referenced that it
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
so I think it was.
And my guess is it was to keep it light and also keep it, relatively strong because that corrugated profile
Right.
that you get gives you tons of compressive strength and gives you all kinds of strength, kind of in all directions, actually. Even if you're using aluminum, which I didn't know.
Aluminium for our UK friends.
Yes, I can't even say that. But did you know that almost every shipping container before, I think it was 1996 is what I read,
Okay.
was steel. And then they started making them aluminum, and now it's still heavily dominated by steel just because of the price of steel. And
Why did they switch it to aluminum?
Rust.
Because of rust.
They don't rust. They get a much longer life, and they're lighter.
Okay, I could see the lighter part, but not as strong.
Not as strong, because even welding aluminum isn't as typically as strong as...
impossible to do.
Yeah,
I think you have
difficult.
to be a good welder to do that.
My nephew's a welder.
Can he weld aluminum?
I think he can weld aluminum. I've asked him.
Can he weld aluminium?
No.
No. Okay. Did you see how I had to pause and think about that?
I had to really think about it.
That's interesting, though, that they switched them to aluminum.
And it's a small percentage, but they are, and they're exactly the same dimensions because all shipping containers are held to a certain specification so that they can stack them.
Okay, so how about we get back on track about these shipping containers?
Okay, perfect.
The best thing about these, in the manufacturer's eyes, is that they load them up at their shop, and then nobody touches their goods until they get dropped off wherever they're going. So theft was pretty much eliminated then, because who was going to steal them?
Unless you watch The Sopranos and they just grab a pair of bolt cutters and
and then they take all the fur coats out of there that are nicely on a rack already.
Yeah.
So that's true. So other than that, theft was reduced. So that's cool.
I can see that.
Yeah. It also helped speed up the time for loading. So instead of a week to load up a ship, you now only took hours.
Have you seen the videos of these gantry cranes and how they pick these things up and load them?
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
It really is. And the accuracy that they move those things around with is pretty good.
Yeah, like that guy that's driving that crane is like way, way far away. So I didn't see like all the individual people, but I imagine they got to be on some kind of two-way radio, and it's like, hey, move over a foot, back a foot. Yeah,
but just think about me. I'd be like a foot, and I'd be and plow some guy over.
That's because you're a bad driver.
I am a bad driver. Yes.
I'm just making that assumption.
I appreciate it. That was good. Those cranes are pretty cool.
Yeah. And the boat just
giant.
pulls right underneath. And
have you ever been to a shipyard where they build giant submarines and aircraft carriers?
You have a couple times, right?
Yeah, those are awesome. And the size of those cranes, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling, as some would say.
Mind-boggling?
Anchorman.
Oh. I'm with you.
Anyways.
Back on track. We keep getting sidetracked.
I know, this is bad. Shipping containers.
Yes.
They actually put some cities on the map, like Oakland, California, or Newark, New Jersey. Some might think that the world would have been better off with places not existing like Newark, New Jersey.
There goes our Newark, New Jersey audience.
I know we have a big audience there, too.
So, interesting fact, there is no known number of the number of shipping containers in the world. I don't know if I said that
So
correctly.
You don't know how many shipping containers exist, is what you're saying.
So I did a ton of research. And
I'm sure you did.
And by a ton, it was 6-7 minutes of just this one topic.
Oh, you mean shipping containers?
No, this one question. Like, I was trying to figure out like how many there are, because you see these pictures and you see these boats, and there's just like thousands and thousands and thousands of them in all these pictures and videos. So I'm assuming that there's like a couple million, right? So I find one website, it says, there's roughly 17 million shipping containers worldwide that are in active service. And then I find another one that says there's 143 million in active service. And I'm like,
at least it's close.
They're numbered.
This is like me guessing something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're numbered, so it's interesting that each one is unique because they have to be, but they don't know the number. I find that this is a perfect application for IoT.
It is a perfect application
for IoT. And if you haven't checked out our IoT podcast, you could definitely check that one. See, look at me doing plugs now.
There's number 4.
But this is perfect application. You can know exactly where in the world these are, whether they're loaded, unloaded. You could put like sensors in to detect like moisture and humidity and temperature and weight and GPS.
Just think about the humidity part would be awesome.
If nobody's doing this,
we should do this.
We should do this and make a lot of money.
We would make a lot of money. It couldn't be worse than... Well,
all the money we're making now with Unprofessional engineering.
Exactly. One more thing I wanted to throw out there is that some people argue that shipping containers are the biggest driver of the global economy because it allows, stuff in China to get shipped to America, stuff in America to get shipped to Germany, all of these great things. It has cut the shipping time from Europe to Australia from 70 to 30 days. That's pretty crazy. And between 1993 and 2002, the average distance of a cargo shipment grew by 40%. So they're just going everywhere.
Yeah.
They're just shipping everywhere.
Well, now you see it all the time. Like, you don't see tractor trailers anymore with like the standard trailer.
Right.
They have flatbeds, and then they have a shipping
And they
container
have-
on the back of it.
That's because it's all the same. It's all
Yeah.
the same standardized, like 40-foot long shipping
Eight
container.
foot wide, 8 foot
8'4",
tall.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they do that with trains now too. I've seen where they just take shipping containers and they're putting them on trains, stacking
Yep.
them 2, 3, 4 tall.
I've
so.
seen that too.
So interesting, and I know you know this.
I'm sure.
How many shipping
Don't I know?
containers? Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious. How many shipping containers are lost at sea per year on average?
I would say 10,000.
That is amazingly the number that I got. Now, do you know why they're lost at sea?
The ship sink?
Not the ships necessarily. So
Maybe they topple over or something?
Yeah, it's mostly toppling because
Okay.
I mean every now and then there is a maritime. I've been wanting to say that
Maritime?
word forever.
Oh, that's
every
good.
now
That's a
and then
good
there's a
word.
maritime disaster and a ship sinks or crashes, but usually it's just the waves in the sea as well as these things are anchored against one another. I mean, that's depending on how you load them, they just basically tip over and fall off the edge of the ship.
So I would love to talk about sinking ships and losing cargo and how they attach to the ships a little more, but let's take a little bit of an early break for a word from our sponsor.
It's really not that early.
All right.
Well,
we
maybe a
must be
couple
talking
minutes
a lot.
early. Yeah.
All right. So this week, we in fact do not have a sponsor. I know.
Surprise, surprise.
That was a shock. But we do have a shout out for Adam, who came up with this topic. Not only did he come up with this topic, but he also wrote in and said he just watched the Watch episode, which if you haven't, go check that one out. It's pretty cool. And he said that you are wrong about saying that you need your own phone plan for the iWatch. But that it is like a $10.
It is an add-on.
It's an add-on.
Yeah, it is because it's its own. It has its own receptor in it or whatever.
So that's just
it's called. He said I was wrong or we were wrong.
Well, he said we were wrong, and I made it clear that you were the one who stated that. So you were wrong.
okay,
what
that's
I'm
all right.
saying.
Well, every now and then.
We also have a shout out for CAD noobs who wrote in again because they're our boys. We're like tight. We might do some sort of co-marketing thing
I'd
for
love
their 11 followers and our 12 followers.
Well, what we need to do is probably like physically get together and do some kind of podcast. Like I feel like we need to meet these.
I feel
these
like
cats
they're
in
like
person.
Midwest, so maybe they can come to us.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. I mean, it's
who
the
doesn't
it's
wanna
the
go
epicenter of the East.
Yeah. Okay, anyways, if you are a subscriber to Unprofessional Engineering, why don't you email us and say hi? You can give us a topic that you'd like us to discuss. You could tell us something funny that happened to you the other day. Or you could just say, hey, I subscribe and I want some Unprofessional Engineering stickers. Email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com and we will send you those stickers. We've already sent out hundreds, so maybe not hundreds. But I bet 100 at least.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Come get some stickers.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's talk about how they attach these suckers to the boat. How about that?
Let me hear it.
Oh, you don't know anything about this?
I don't. I did a lot of research on what you do with old ones.
Oh, okay. So before we do that, I have a guessing game for you.
Oh, I love these.
What, on average, how fast do cargo ships move?
Okay, do I need to know knots or
You
miles
need to
per
know
hour?
knots because I don't know miles
I'm
per hour.
going to say 45 knots.
15. So at least you were not close at all.
So how fast is a knot?
I don't know.
I'm going to say a knot is like 2 miles an hour. So I'm going to say they're 30 miles an hour.
Sometimes I make rolls and I tie the dough in a knot and then bake that.
I'm not sure where you're going with that. That
Anyway.
seems slow.
Yeah, it does seem slow, but I'm thinking, they don't want them to topple over
Yeah.
and all that
I'm
stuff.
with you.
So, anyways, how do they do this?
Okay.
Luke? They pick them up with a crane and they drop them on the deck.
I doubt they drop.
Well,
It's probably more of a setting
They do
action.
set them with people there. And so they have twist locks, they call them.
I've seen them.
Which it's kind of like they're on special little locking mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a handle, and you slide the handle down, and the twist locks lock the containers into place.
I feel like we should do some kind of like analysis of that.
We could do some sort of analysis of that.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So anyways, a lot of these have twist locks, and you can use this mechanism, for a few high. But eventually you get too high, and then they have an automatic twist lock. So when they get set in place, they can just automatically attach to each other.
Okay.
So I wonder why they don't just always use the automatic ones, unless they're maybe more expensive or something.
Yeah, perhaps. Or it could just be because they pack them pretty tight. Like, you can't physically get a person probably up there safely.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
So
But-
it's just an auto thing.
Right, but if they can automate that, why don't they automate all of them?
Well, yeah. Well,
Isn't
not
automation-
everybody thinks the way you and I think.
That's true.
James.
We are brains. So anyways, in addition to these twist locks, they also have pad eyes on the deck.
Okay.
And connected up towards the containers where they have lashing rods, which are like big metal rods that also hold all of these kind of like bound together. So the way I see it, these shipping containers are kind of like an all or nothing deal. I feel like if this thing topples over, you're pretty much losing everything.
Yeah,
because they seem pretty well tied together.
Yeah, like whenever one
Or
goes.
a big chunk.
Yeah, one goes or they all go.
Yeah. So then there's the ones underneath. They're a lot easier, so under the hull.
Yeah.
Because these shipping vessels have special cells already designed where you lower them into, and they have like metal rails as well. So the containers just follow those rails, and that then locks them into place and keeps them.
Man, could you imagine if they got like stuck? Like,
You couldn't get them out?
Yeah, like you know how, did you ever like work with like some metal and it binds up and you get the PB blaster out and the WD-40 and your hammer? Could you imagine like if you
how
kind of
much
if
WD-40?
you racked it in wrong? You know how like you put it in wrong just a little bit and you can't get it back out?
I bet that happens.
I'm sure it happens.
And then you rip the boat apart,
Oh,
and that's
goodness.
expensive. Anyways, then you already mentioned 10,000 containers a year go. Woo!
So obviously these mechanisms aren't that. My guess is that's pretty severe weather conditions.
I
Probably.
would have to think so. But I was also going to say the 10,000 isn't so bad considering over 200 million containers move by ship each year.
Yeah, so you and
That's
I have
such a
drastically
small
different numbers.
Percentage. Yeah.
200 million?
Yeah. So some of these that fall overboard, they like wash up on the shore. But most of them just sit there.
How cool would that be if like you're like Ocean City, Maryland, all of a sudden like this shipping container rolls up and it's got like fur coats and TVs in
You
it.
come out like all.
That would be awesome.
I'm more of a gold doubloon kind of guy.
Okay.
I've always wanted to go hunt for treasure.
So do you know why the stacking is made so easy?
Because you want it to be
no.
easy?
So back in 1961, ISO, which is the International Organization for Standardization, basically
ISO.
yeah, you know ISO.
I do.
They do tons of stuff.
Yeah,
but they basically
it's not just shipping containers.
They basically defined a standard size and dimensions and details for connections, length, width, everything for shipping containers, so that whether you have a shipping container that's made in China, and they say 95% of all shipping containers are manufactured in China.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So whether it's made in China or they make it in Oakland or Cleveland or wherever they make it, when you put these totally different manufactured shipping containers together on a ship, they all fit.
Interesting. Thank you, ISO.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they didn't fit. It'd be like the worst game of Tetris ever.
So Tetris is already a pretty bad game. So, yeah, it would be pretty bad.
And another thing, did you know that almost 100% of shipping containers are owned by, I think they said there's a couple dozen companies.
Oh, yeah, and they're like...
that own all the shipping containers in the world, and they basically lease them to all these other companies for shipping purposes.
I also read that they're really struggling with money because they're driving the margins down so low with the competition that they're really not making a lot.
And that's why you need 200 million of them.
That's why you need so many, yeah.
It's crazy.
Interesting. All right, so do you have anything else about the shipping, the locking down, the sorry we lost your stuff at sea, try again?
What's the average lifespan of a shipping container?
50 years?
25 years if they're well maintained and
Wow.
they don't fall in the ocean.
Wow, I wonder how that differs now with aluminum versus steel.
I would think, to your point earlier, aluminum's
to be.
definitely not as strong.
Right.
But depending on what you're shipping and where you're doing it, steel, they say,
I feel like the steel might be trouble because of like the doors and the hinges. That
Yeah.
might be what's failing on them versus just the container
yeah,
itself.
yeah. So that's an interesting one. So there are the other one. Are we going to talk about like the 3 basic types?
Let's do that now.
Okay. So there's essentially 3 basic types. The traditional one that you normally see on the bed of a truck or a train or on a boat. These are 40-foot containers. So these are 40 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot. They weigh empty 8,000 pounds, and they can hold up to 80,000 pounds.
Wow.
In one shipping container. The next one down is the 20 foot. So again, these are all 8 by 8, and it's just the length that changes. By 20, these weigh 5,000 pounds, and they hold 48,000 pounds. And then the small ones are 10-foot containers, and these are 3,000 pounds. So I could tow this with my truck basically empty.
The small ones, yeah.
And these can hold still 30,000 pounds in that one. So
Then you could not tow it.
then I could crush my truck and destroy my transmission.
Did you ever get the cold air intake put on there?
No. I keep on looking to buy it, and I'm waiting for the price to change on Amazon, but it is going to happen.
Okay.
It is going to happen. So what is the cost? And we're doing, I love the guessing game. What's the, and you can give me a range. What's the
Okay.
cost of a brand new 20-foot shipping container? Brand new.
15,000.
No. $3,000 to $5,000.
That's not bad.
You were talking about cheap, right?
Yeah.
The margin. So
Yeah,
they're
that's good.
brand new. They're pretty, and I guess it all depends on if you have like refrigeration in them, and there's all
yeah.
kinds of different types. Like
See, I was going back to my prefab housing for housing.
No,
okay,
no.
I got it.
No,
Yep,
no.
you're right. They are
brand
much
new
cheaper.
one. So a used container, not one that you is ready to build a house, but just an old nasty red. Old rusty shipping container. How much?
$500.
3,000 and under.
How much was a new one?
A new one is 3 to 5.
Why would you get an old one?
It just holds. They hold their value because even if
It's like a Rolex.
it's like a Rolex.
So go
they
watch
hold
the
their
watch
value.
episode.
And I think what it is depending on the condition. If it's in really good condition, they're at that higher end.
Wow. Are you good?
Yeah. I'm good.
All right, so let's take one more break for this week's Terrible Engineering.
Oh, drum roll.
Yeah, so I actually found new music for this section too,
Oh, so I
you
didn't
can
need to
enjoy
do
this
that.
now.
You shouldn't have told me to do that then.
I'm sure you didn't. Anyways, this week's Terrible Engineering is brought to you by CAD Noobs, who wrote in and suggested that the Millennium Tower in San Francisco is terrible engineering.
I've been to San Francisco, and why have I never heard of
You
this?
should, I guarantee you've seen it.
Okay.
Because it's actually that giant, it's a 58-story condo
Okay.
building, and it's right by Market and Mission.
Oh, okay, I know.
So
I
it's
do know where
right
you're
by
talking.
where we go.
I do know where you're talking.
And the thing that's bad about it is that it is sinking and tilting. So they opened in 2009 and started moving people in, which is great.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, this is going to sink about 5.5 inches because that stuff happens.
They knew this might
settles.
happen.
Right.
Okay.
And by 2016, it is already at 10 inches sinking and tilting.
Oh, wow.
So it's still safe to live in, but not real good.
It's like, so it's like the
it's starting
leaning
to-
tower. It's like the leaning tower of San Francisco.
Right, exactly. So,
So what do you think it is? So let's say let's dig into this for just like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Who do you blame?
well, that's funny because they blame other people, the people that created this building. They're
Okay.
saying that I think the transportation folks built a tunnel nearby, and they're saying, no, it's because of them.
Oh,
And
okay.
the transportation people are saying, yeah, you were sinking and tilting before we even broke ground for
Yeah.
our project. So there's all sorts of lawsuits happening.
Yeah,
But
so-
it has to be the architects, right?
Well, but is it the architects? Is it like
It's the civil engineers.
You know what? We gotta,
Of
you know
course
what?
it is.
If there was a way to blame the electrical guys,
Yeah,
we would.
that's true.
But since we can't, I think civil is the next type of engineer we would blame. I would
Right.
have to think it's like land development is who they ultimately blame for not doing proper core samples or something like
but
that.
I mean, I don't know what job that falls under. I would think that's a civil.
I would
Or
think.
it's all part of the same group.
Yeah, I
would
mean, they
think,
all
right?
kind of work for this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a good one. I like that. That's
that too.
terrible.
That
could
is
you imagine,
terrible
Could you imagine
engineering.
like being that person? You're so excited. You move to San Francisco. Your rent's like $7,000.
It has to be so expensive
And-
there. That's right by the ferry building.
Yeah, and you move
Oh.
in, and then like a year later, you're told this place is sinking. You try to leave, and you can't get rid of your place.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That would be horrible. Okay, sorry.
Anyways, let's get into our final topic about shipping containers, I do believe, and that is shipping containers as homes.
Well, so for me, it's what do you do with shipping containers when they're done being shipping containers? I have a list.
You
so
don't just throw them in the ocean and say, oops, those ones went overboard.
I'm sure that happens. I'm sure they do a lot of that.
So you tell me a little bit about this. would
Okay,
you?
so we'll save. Actually, let's do homes first.
Okay.
Because you have some info on that, and
I
I'll
do.
add my other stuff. So you
All
can
right.
start with the homes.
Oh, that's nice. So, intermodule steel building units, ISBUs.
Wow.
They're a fast, green, and sustainable approach to building. So apparently this is a popular thing, probably with dirty hipsters all loving the earth and stuff. So they're probably going to replace the Millennium Tower in San Francisco
With a bunch of old shipping containers.
Shipping containers. Those will sink too. But anyways, if you use 4 40 by 8 by 8 units side by side, you end up with a 3-bedroom home that's about 1,280 square feet. So that's kind of cool, considering
bad
we
at all.
already just said that these things are like dirt cheap.
Yeah,
so
very cheap.
That's awesome. So basically, you pour a foundation like you normally would.
Mm-hmm.
You set your 4 containers on the form and you lock them into place, and then you weld them into place. And a lot of the times you'll find that all of the walls are cut out except the exterior
Mm-hmm.
walls, and then they just have beams placed on the inside for like vertical support beams to keep things from collapsing, which is
Interesting.
great. And then you can put a real roof on it so that your steel doesn't rust out on the top, and you can cut holes for doors and windows.
What I like is you take this great idea, like you just said.
Great idea.
Take take $4,000, buy 4 containers, build this awesome house, and even with all your money into it, maybe you can build a house for like $15,000-$20,000. So like
Yeah.
appliances, electrical,
and
everything,
you can
right?
like lay a floor down.
That
You
seems
can
great,
put
right?
walls up.
So leave it to some company to take this idea of, really inexpensive housing and turn this into some boutique market.
Uh-huh.
So there are companies out there that will sell you ready. They're basically modular homes
Yeah,
at
they're
this point.
prefab,
And
yeah.
all they do is take this container and plug it together, and those rooms line up. And these things sell from anywhere from $33,000. That doesn't include the land, the foundation. It's just
right.
the containers. $33,000 up to $80,000. You can get a regular house.
Metal boxes.
Yeah, so I love the original intent of this, really inexpensive housing. Maybe if you want to go off the grid and put
Right.
something in the woods, I think that seems...
That would be reasonable. Like build a hunting cabin out of these. I think that would be a good move.
So I like the intent of it, but I think it's turned into this kind of like tiny home craze, and
course.
and everything's crazy expensive.
The last thing I'll say about this is voted on by what are these shipping container home owners?
Okay.
The top 3 things you should know before you do this. Know how to purchase the correct shipping containers. Know the importance of building regulations and planning, because you can't just drop these anywhere. And find a contractor with previous shipping container building experience.
I'm sure they're all over the place.
That's what I'm thinking. Anyways,
Okay.
go
so
ahead.
I have a couple other things. So other things you do with shipping containers other than build.
I'm excited to hear
home.
this.
So obviously the house is one, but some interesting ones that I've seen. There's this guy. He's a YouTuber that makes stuff. I've seen him do it. He and you've seen him too. He's in the UK. He put an underground bunker. He took a 10 by 10 shipping container, dug this enormous hole in his backyard, dropped the shipping container, covered it, put a hatch on it, water system, electric, all kinds of, and basically has this like nuclear war bug out shelter in his backyard.
So I looked into that a little bit, and everything I saw said don't do that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because it actually isn't that strong. Like it'll buckle, the sides will
Yeah,
push in.
it's not
so you need a
meant for-
lot of extra support going on.
Well,
so
that's
it's not
probably-
as cheap as just dropping a box in the ground.
well, that's probably why he did the 10 by 10, because there's a little more rigidity, because
Right.
it's a little bit smaller rather than the wider one. So
Right.
that's one. And this one I want to do. I tried talking to my wife, and
Didn't happen?
she put the kibosh on it. Pools.
Pools. Oh,
So
classy.
imagine a shipping container. So these things are 8 foot, like a lap pool. So it's 8 foot by 8 foot by 40. They have like a little set of steps that go in, and it's literally 100% inside of the shipping container. They use one end of it for the heater and the pump, and you just order this pool, and they drop it in your backyard with the crane. You plug it in, and you're swimming the next day.
Wow.
That's
sounds
an
okay.
interesting one. I've seen hotels around the world done with these where they just stack them up. Stores. When we were in Las Vegas a few years ago, I don't know if I was with you. I forget who I was with. We visited
Probably.
this shipping container little city park area where they had all kinds of bars and restaurants and shopping, and it was basically like 25 shipping containers all stacked up. They had walkways.
I was probably working while
I'm
you were
sure
out
you were.
partying.
I'm sure you were. I'm
Right.
sure you were working. I think I was with our boss, maybe. Workshops in your backyard. Again, waterproof. Super easy to do rather than building a building. Bridges. So if you need to span a small distance, you could do bridges
That
with
makes
these.
sense. I just use a tree normally, but okay.
Yeah, you could do that. I've seen offices, and the coolest one, and I feel so bad for these folks in Puerto Rico right now. They've got hit really, really hard.
have.
So 2 summers ago, my family took a trip to Puerto Rico, and the best fish tacos in all of Puerto Rico was this little restaurant. And when we got there, it was this orange shipping container. And they had like a door that flipped. It was like street food, but it was like a permanent building shipping container. And they were the best fish tacos I've ever had. So hopefully, and I would imagine of all those buildings down there, the shipping containers probably did pretty well with all this storm, I would guess. So hopefully everybody in Puerto Rico is doing okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
And hopefully the fish tacos are still there when I go back.
That is an important thing, too. Yeah.
So.
All right. Anything else to add on to this?
Let me just double check. We did the how many fall in the ocean.
I think we're going to call it a day.
I think we are going to call it a day.
So thank you for the write-in about the shipping containers. If anybody else has any other great ideas,
We'd love to hear 'em.
Absolutely. Send them to unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And I guess that's it for today.
All righty. See you.